Now today I want to talk about after watch what my thoughts after watching Kamen Rider Z29. Okay, first of all, there are some things I was a little surprised about. Um, I didn't think people could transform into nightmares, right? I thought it was like uh I thought it was like a generic kind of thing, like it was magic, like kind of like sleeping magic or something. That's what I thought it was. Like me beings made of magic, because the fact that they die and then reborn to the butterfly thing, and then they could make the consoles. I really thought that they would be made of like some type of like magic. That's what I thought, right? So I thought that humans couldn't become nightmares unless they were being possessed, right? Because here's the thing: up till now, Zets has been trying to save the dreamer, so that the nightmare doesn't possess the human, right? So I'm worried about how the story is going to progress now, because now humans can become nightmares, right? So I'm worried about like how the story is going to continue from here, because they've been following one plan for so long, right? That I'm worried if they switch up like this, it might ruin the flow if of the show. If you get what I mean. Uh, Skip, you don't. It just I feel like it ruins the flow. Like save the dreamer, prevent her from turning into a monster, and that's it. But now after watching 29, humans can turn into the monsters. So now I feel like what you know what I mean? Like I'm worried about when I'm missing a flow. I'm worried about like it's all of a sudden like nothing makes sense now, right? Because now they don't even like. There's no point in protecting the. I feel like there's no point in protecting the dreamer now, because at any time they can become a monster, right? So they don't even need to kill the monster. Uh, now now Minami being the dreamer was interesting, right? Or maybe so then here's the thing: who was the little girl? Maybe she was an NPC. I'm assuming that Jocko was it was her nightmare, and the girl was just an NPC to get it done. Now, there are some things that I kind of worried about Sig in terms of how much power Sig has. I mean, he's able to change dreams, but here's the thing. Um, Here's the thing. Now, I thought that the things behind the door were supposed to be something that the subconscious mind was supposed to represent, right? Something that subconscious was supposed to represent, right? So I was a little surprised that Sid could just look to the door and then change it. Like I kind of find that's kind of I personally feel like that kind of ruins the narrative, at least in my opinion, because like um how should I say this? Baku is because like Baku is supposed to fight the monster, and like I said, fight the monster and all that stuff. But that's the thing. So now, don't get me wrong. Changing up the story, right halfway through, I like it, but I'm just worried it might affect the flow of the story. Because I really feel like, which isn't necessarily, no, changing the flow of the story isn't necessarily bad, but I just feel like it's kind of weird doing that. Like I said, we're 29 episodes in. Kamen Rider is usually anywhere from 45 to 50 episodes long, and just changing up the direction like that, I think that's kind of weird. Now I understand that Sig is supposed to be an agent of chaos, and he's supposed to like throw off the dreams, right? So that you know, but despite that, all right, and mm, here's the thing I don't like about Sig. Like I said, I get he's supposed to be the agent of chaos. I get he's supposed to be an OP power that Baku is supposed to be an OP opponent that Baku has to eventually overcome. Right? I think they said that pretty weird, but the thing is that right, they have to find a way to explain how Sig could lose, because the fact that he can go to the door, look through it, change the outcome, right? And keep in mind the door is supposed to represent the subconscious mind of the dreamer, right? Right? And he can just go in there, look at the door, and change it. Um, I think is a little weird because it feels because then it makes it feel like a brainwashing power that's even stronger than the lady, right? Because I honestly feel because it feels like the lady. Now, the only way I can think they can explain this off is just that his lucid dreaming ability is so powerful that it can overwrite anyone else's dreams. That's weaker. Um, that's the only way that I think they could legitimately explain it. But even then, I think it would be a little odd if I'm being honest, because like giving Sig so much power, it's going to take like a like a major power up to even beat him down. If he can do this and you give him this much power, I don't think a simple power up is going to be enough to beat Sig. I really don't think so. That's why I really feel like Sig might actually be the final villain at the end, because I don't see anyone beating him with just a small power up or a small change. I really don't see it. So I really feel that Sig may actually be the final villain at the end, right? And the thing about Sig is, I think Sig's motivation is to make Baku suffer, but it's not for what you think, right? I don't a lot. I think that the reason why he wants to make Baku suffer is not to like not for the nightmare reason, right? Not for like to try to take over his body and zetzs or anything like that. I actually think it's because it has something to do with the castrum thing. Well, because according to not Baku, Nox, right? That uh what was his name? Yeah, I forgot. Sig, right? Sig gave into his nightmare, and he was given like a whole bunch of power, right? Right, and that he wanted to fight uh, Baku. Now, a lot of people will probably think that he just wants to wait until he mature. He's waiting for Baku to mature, which I do agree with. But I actually think there's another purpose. I think that Sig feels lonely being the only one who has like this nightmare. Like the fact that he gave it to his nightmare and he's the only one, right? I feel like he right that he got all his power. He's at the top. He gave up his humanity. He is, he is you know he's bored. I think he's honestly bored, right? And I think that part of me thinks that Sig is trying to make Baku suffer so that he can convince him to go all in on the nightmare, just like Sig did, right? I think so. I think he's like trying to train him, toughen him up, reach his pinnacle form, but also point. Sorry, not. Sorry, did I say? Oh, anyway, sorry. Reach to his most critical point, right? Right. Get him to make him his most powerful form, right? Right, and then make him fall into despair so that he goes completely dark, right? So he becomes just like him. Because if I remember correctly, there is a point where Sig says, "I was looking for someone to challenge me" or something like that, and it turns out that it's Baku, or actually I think he called Baku Zets, but whatever, right? But whatever. But so it makes me think that you're just like me, right? Baku, you're just like me. Just give it into the nightmares and become like me, right? Now, I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's the feeling I get, right? I don't know if it's like if it's they want to power him up just to fight each other, which I kind of do think that is based off the Coliseum that he runs, but I also think it's because of camaraderie. He wants like another person like him to exist, and he's trying to make Baku suffer to push him to do it. Or he could be insane. So he could be insane, but I can't understand because like this is the only way I can explain what his fascination with Baku is, right? So it's the only thing that I get. Now I want to talk about the kind of small thing, but I actually do like it. Nanami is an agent. Now, I actually think that Minami is an agent that was placed on Baku to ensure that Baku grew up mentally sane. Right? I think that Zero planted her, right, to observe him, right, and make sure that he goes down that route. Now, now, I am kind of interested to see um, what happens next episode because I think that for a small second, Baku loses his shit because I believe in the preview he's attacking the cat nightmare, despite knowing that it is his, I guess, fake sister now, Nami. Um, so now there's something I want to talk about. I think there is a chance that Baku is not human now. At first, I thought that Baku was human. I thought Baku was some type of like special nightmare that he um, was just a nightmare that had humanity, right? And because he had humanity, he was able to take a human form. That's what I thought at first, right? But I dismissed it because Nemani, he is human, and she um and she's human, and he's your sister. So if she's sister and she was born from the same parents, it's impossible for Baku not to be human, right? But now that we know that Nami is not his biological sister and that she is the agent I'm assuming was planted by Zero to keep him, morally ground and monitoring him when Zero couldn't, which is I right. So uh so I think that he's going to snap at first, but then come back to reality, realize, accepts that Nami is not a blood relative, but still accepts her anyway at the end. That's what I think is probably going to happen. Now, uh, so this is not human, but here's the thing. Now I think that him being a special type of being is probably accurate now. I think this theory is now totally possible. Now that Nami is not a biological sister, I think that the him being a special existence is now possible, considering that now that he has no family, right, he has no like biological family. It could be possible that Baku is in fact a special a special nightmare. Now I didn't mention this before that maybe Baku is not human and he's just a special type of existence. Now this theory, I want to put this theory back on the table now. Now that we know that Nami is not his biological sister, this theory is not possible. I want to put it back on the table. That table that maybe, just maybe, just hear me out. This is just a whack out theory, and I want to bring it out, but I want to say it now. I think when Zero says Zetz's power, I don't think it's referring to the driver or or the capsums. I think Zetz itself is actually Baku himself. I actually started to think, and just throw it out there, that maybe Baku is like a genetically mutated nightmare. Like they took a nightmare, they added human DNA to it, or something like that, and then it shaped itself because after you do it, it took the form of a human, right? Of a human. So they took baby nightmare, gave it human genetics, and then it transformed, and then that nightmare took human form. So then, because of that, it also, right, and also because it was guarded by Nami, the agent, right, it grew up to be human, and it considered itself human. It didn't consider so because it grew up by the agent Nami, it was groomed, right. The special mutant nightmare was groomed by Nami, and by Code, right, to create a super agent, right? Was to I think that it was originally to create a super agent that could defeat any nightmare or any supernatural, like any threat that Code deemed to be eliminated, right? Right. So, like, right. That's my theory so far. Because, like I said, most writers' powers and abilities usually come from and the villains usually come from the same source. So I'm thinking that since nightmares are like the main villains, I have a feeling that Baku has to be connected to nightmares in some way. So I think that Baku is actually part nightmare, combined with human DNA, monitored by Zero and Nami. Zero in his dreams and Nami out in reality, monitoring him. Now we both know that Code has the power to manipulate memories. I think. I mean, they erase them and then bring them back. So I'm going to assume that they have the power to manipulate memories. I'm going to make that assumption, right? So it makes me feel like it's totally possible, right? And right, and but the only problem is that if this guy was originally meant to be a super soldier, why did three kill him off the first time? Which is odd because if he really was like supposed to be a super soldier, um, I don't understand why three killed him. Oh well, I guess they could maybe Zetsu was supposed to be a prototype, right? They tried it, realized it worked, right, and then killed Baku. Baku was like, we know where we don't need him anymore. Popped him in the head and killed him, right? popped him in the head and killed him, then they realized, okay, then they're gonna make like then then they're gonna make a real like super soldier agent, right? Like I think Baku is just a prototype. That's why they killed him off, right? Right, and then okay, prototype worked. We tested him enough. Okay, kill him and bring back the driver, and then we'll pick a real, um, ultimate agent. That's what I think. That's my. It's wild. I know it's wild out there, but I really think that's it. Or it could be he could be an anomaly, like a something. You know how Loki there's those variants, but instead of like making a choice that made him a variant, his very existence is a variant. Or something like that line. I really do think that it would be possible. So yeah. Anyway, we're gonna end it here now. So hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.